Okay. For 2 minutes for lunch. On the phone pending. We have exactly 55 minutes remaining. So it's really important if you have questions as we go through these things that you ask them. I'm always more than happy to talk about any questions if they have challenges, makes a big difference. So please don't be shy. So I'm going to introduce you to the stress model. I developed the stress model probably 24 years ago, and it really changed my outlook on everything, the way I see things. And I developed it based on a conversation I was having with a parent at a lecture. The parent came up and was talking to me and was telling me her story with her child. And as she was telling me the story, I just started paying less attention to the behaviors. This is really, I was just talking to a therapist a moment ago. He was telling me about all of this scary stuff happening with these kids that she's working with, and saying, what I do, what I do, what I do. And that's very interesting, because what happens is that when we are dealing with our own children, when we're dealing with families, with stressed out children, that stress starts to stress us. And then what we do is we start focusing on how do we fix it? How do we fix it? How do we fix it? Which actually is a part of the problem. When you are afraid, fear says fix it. Love says create the environment in the relationships to allow it to fix itself. So when you get stressed, you start wanting to fix it. And that is a very amygdala-based reaction. Remember, I said the amygdala, you always know when you're stressed, when you want to control, suppress, or change something. So then when you're focused on controlling, suppressing, and changing it, you're not focusing on listening to all the reasons that are creating it from the very beginning. Big difference. When I stopped focusing on behaviors and started focusing on the stress and the fear leading to the behavior, it changed everything. And so that was the stress model. The stress model says all behavior arises from a state of stress. In between the behavior and the stress is the presence of a primary emotion. There are only two primary emotions, love and fear. Your body, your cellular experience only knows surviving or thriving. So the moment you become stressed and react, you move into fear. We move into survival. When you're in survival, you cannot be in a relationship because you're in survival. There are only two primary emotions, love and fear. It's to the expression, the processing, and the understanding of the fear that we can calm the stress and diminish the behavior. So the first thing we have to realize is that all behavior that arises from a state of stress causes us to be stressed. All behavior that arises from a state of stress causes us to be stressed. And when we become stressed, that drives one of our emotions on fear. And that fear drives our behavior. So the key is we have to be able to breathe in the presence of our stress. Breathe in the presence of our fear, calm that down so we can move back over into a loving space. And then act from the space of love and not from the space of fear. Because the fear and the stress is what is at the root of the problem. I'm going to say that again. The fear and the stress is what's at the root of the problem. So if you create more stress and more fear, you're just going to create more of the problem. So measure that. Anytime, anything you do, just ask yourself, is this creating more stress and more fear, or is this creating less? And if it's creating more, do less of it. And if it's creating less, do more of it. So you think if you get the situation with any challenges that you're having, it's what I'm doing, creating more stress and more fear, or creating less. And then hold yourself accountable to that. Because this is just living. We like to call this mental health, and we like to call it therapy, and we like to call it this diagnosis and that diagnosis, but it's just living. It's just relationships. It's just human behavior. This is not isolated to adoption. It's not isolated to foster care. It is your brain. It's my brain. It's your brain. It's how we deal with one another in the world. And the sooner we can get to looking at that and stop pathologizing our children, the better off we're going to be. Just hold yourself accountable. Am I creating more stress, or am I reducing the stress? And then do something different. Okay, talked about Mindify. This is my AI-driven parent support app. All of you, I really encourage you to try this for 14 days. You can try it for free. If you love it, then you can pay $14 a month or something like that, $15 a month, and cheaper for you here in the UK. But you can, in Scotland, you can try it for 14 days, and basically you just have it on your phone. You can ask him a question. It's an app. It's AI powered. It's all programmed with me. You can ask him a question. It'll give you a response. 24 hours, 7 days a week. I had a mom who wanted to talk. She was like, I'm going to the bathroom and ask you questions. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. But here's my real goal of Barnify is that I wanted to help stop disruptive placements. Help stop disruptive placements and adoptive homes and foster homes. So right now it's all focused on adoption, but it applies for all parents. Because I believe that if I can get you to pause long enough to just ask me a question, that I can reroute the direction of where the scenario is going to be. So if I can just get you to pause, and you can pause long enough to ask me a question, then I can give you an answer and a response. If you just listen to it, it will change what you're seeing. It'll change how you respond. That's what Modify is. And then it's also full of educational courses and classes. And actually, we just reshot the parenting matrix, which is how I met Suzanne. So it's a 30-day course that we take. So you can access that through Modify. So it's just a great parenting resource. The feeling is the path to be healed. So I'm introducing you to the A to Z principle. In our society, when it comes to the A to Z principle, and the A to Z principle is basically the alphabet. Z is the outcome. So what we like to focus on in our society. There it is. What we like to focus on in our society, if you think about the alphabet A to Z, we like to focus on X, Y, and Z. So Z is the behavior, which means it's the outcome. Okay, so when you have a behavior, any behavior, called the Great Behavior Breakdown. There's 27 severe behaviors that I talked about. So I give you an approach to all 27 of those behaviors. But that is the Z. The behavior is the Z. So when we're stressed, the furthest that we tend to look is X, Y, and Z. We don't look any further than that, but that's the outcome. And here's what we don't realize. That in order to get to Z, you must first start with A. And A is the process. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Before you get to the outcome, you have a process. Every behavior has a process. There's a process to every behavior. The behavior is the outcome. If you want to change the behavior, if you want to change the outcome, then change the process. And this is where parents say, well, the behaviors that they're doing are so severe that it's not predictable. It's not predictable. They just go right to behaviors. Well, that's not true. Here's what happens. Your amygdala, because of how often the behaviors are happening, because of the intensity of the behaviors, then what is happening is your amygdala is only focusing on behaviors. Your amygdala is only looking for the behavior. Your amygdala is looking for the smells of the behavior, the sounds of the behavior, the temperature of the behavior. And it's all just looking for behavior. So it doesn't see the process. So I had a mom in one of my lunches. I had gone up to the front of the room. She said, my son's 12 years old. He just goes to aggression. And she's a counselor. So she comes up to the front of the room. I said, okay, well, tell me how it starts. She's like, what do you mean? I said, well, how does it start? How do you know it's going to become aggressive? She says, he goes, I said, okay, you be him and I'm going to be you. And so I said, go ahead and start. And she goes, and so then I walked over and I picked her up and I said, it's okay, baby. It's okay. It's okay. The point being that becomes a part of the process. The grunt is a cue. He doesn't just become aggressive. He grunts. But what happens when we are so conditioned, when our brains have become conditioned to a certain reaction, as soon as he grunts, we immediately go into, oh my God, he's about to get aggressive. And when that happens, we change the vibration. So we either ignore, we get more intense, we don't soothe, we dysregulate. So you have to be able to ask yourself, what can I change in the process? The process might be the night before. You can go all the way back to the night before. The process could be when he gets off the bus after school or in the morning when he wakes up. Or it could be 2 days before. What is it that you can do differently in the process that changes the outcome? Just think about that. Any behavior you got right now is an outcome. How can you change the process? What can you do differently? What's one of the things that typically is always missing from stress factor? Affection. Affection. Because your skin has the same amount of sensory pathways as your brain. So when someone is touching you, it is stressful. It is stressful. It has an impact. So when you're in a place, in an environment of stress, what happens is you stop touching. Even though affection is one of the single greatest ways to release oxytocin in the brain. Oxytocin brings the brain's anti-stress hormone. And I was just talking with someone who asked me if I ever did anything with dementia. I don't work with dementia patients because I work with adopted children and families. But what we know about dementia, which happens later in life, is that there are 2 things that happen mostly. Isolation. As we get older, we become more isolated, and then we get less touch. When you are isolated, you have less touch, and you're getting less oxytocin. When you're getting less oxytocin, then your brain is exposed to more stress hormone. And then that eats away at your hippocampus, which is the part of the brain responsible for short-term memory. So when stress is not interrupted, the cortisol damages the hippocampus. But the hippocampus and the hypothalamus is also open for change and development throughout the lifespan. So those are areas that can actually change once you interrupt stress in the overload. But 9 times out of 10 with our own children, we don't interrupt it because the traditional things that we do actually create more stress. So we got that basic principle. Now, I like times like webinars and stuff in my certification. I will have my certification students create this, and then I will have them go in any behavior that they deal with. I will then have them put that behavior, and then I'll have them go and mark go make marks. And what are the things that you could have done to change the process? Let's talk about empower. If I can, instead of you feeling like you're helpless to your child's behavior, if I can show you that there are 25 different things you could have done to change that behavior, that gives you a completely different perspective on just how helpful you can be, just how powerful you can be. You do not have to just wait for behavior to happen. Just go home. Any behavior you're dealing with, the most secure behavior you're dealing with, write it on a piece of paper, just like this. Put it up, put the behavior, put it in front of the behavior, and then back up as far as you can and say, what can I do differently to impact the outcome? And come up with one little thing. These don't have to be big things. It could be a pat. It could be a pat on the shoulder. It could be a hug. It could be a smile. It could be, do you want to snack? It could be, do you want to go for a walk? It could be, what do you want to do today? I'll do anything you want to do. It could be any number of things. All those things impact the outcome. So that's how you change the outcome. That's how you get away from thinking behaviors are not predictable. Severe behaviors are always predictable. Your kids have been doing the same thing every other day for years. It is predictable. You just got to pay attention to it and stop getting focused just on the behavior. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's what happens. The most common things we do, I call this the discipline continuum. I used to call it parenting continuum, but it actually applies in all of our settings, mental health, schools, everywhere. The most common things we do fall on the continuum of reactivity and fear, -1 to -10. All three have to benefit. The definition is -100. But we don't realize that these things that we do, the most common things we do, set on the same continuum as the death penalty because we're -1 to -10. So we're like, oh, you know, it's so when Benji's 5 years old, we can get them time out. This is just such a common thing. But what we never stop to do is to realize that the most common things we do have one common denominator. They all create more stress or they don't interrupt them. They all work against you. And you start doing it from the time your children are little. From the time your children are little, then by the time you're 15, they don't want to listen to you anyway. They're running off down the streets and doing whatever they want to do. But we don't realize that we do this. These are the most common things we do. And so I always ask, well, why do we do them? We do them because for 70% of children, they work. For 70% of children, these things work. But here's the secret to the 70%. Anything you do with the 70% works because they can regulate their own stress. So you do these things with the 70%, and they're typically going to be the child who almost never gets a time. They're the child who never loses a point. You know, in school, they do red light, yellow light, green light. 70% of children get to a yellow light, they never get to a red light. Now, how does that happen? Because when the kid goes from a green to a yellow, guess what that does? That stresses the child out. The child who has the ability to regulate their brain can hold that stress, calm that stress down, and eventually get back down to a green light. But your child, who's stress sensitive, easily overwhelmed and fearful, gets a yellow light, and guess what they focus on? The yellow light, and everything that comes along with the yellow light, and then guess what? Boom, red light, in trouble all over again, day after day after day after day. And the adults keep putting the child on the green light, yellow light, red light system. And if the adult really was self-aware and really was trauma responsive, then what they would do is when the child goes from green to yellow, that would be a signal for the adult to give the child a time in instead of a time out. Children don't act out for attention, children act out because they need attention. So if you hit yellow, that means I need to take a little special time with you. And guess what? To the teacher who says, but I have 60 kids in my classroom. You don't have 60 kids who are stress sensitive and easily overwhelmed in your classrooms. You have one who gets 2 others going, and the 3 disrupt the entire class. So if you operate from prevention, I'm going to have Christine sit right here next to me Not only that, but as soon as she comes in first thing in the morning, I'm looking at her like it's she's my favorite person. She's my person. This becomes my person. And she becomes my person. Guess what kind of relationship we have? Regulated. And guess what happens when I'm over here and she starts to get a little stressed because we have a relationship? I say, she gets settled. And then without her doing anything, I'm going to be teaching the rest of the class. And I'm just going to be over here, right? Just like this. Say, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do next. Here's what we're going to do next. Right here. This is my favorite person. I'm going to keep her regulated every single day. And then guess what's going to happen after she changes classes and goes to deals with the other asshole teacher? And get stressed out. And then they're going to be calling me, right? And I'm going to have to prepare them. But the truth is, they can do everything that I'm doing. But when you have a difficult child, a child that elicits stress in your brain, guess what you end up doing? Good morning, sweetheart. Hey, good to see you. Hi, let's Christine, how are you this and that becomes the experience. And she feels it. And so that's triggering her brainstem. And then that drives her behaviors. We can take responsibility in these situations. But the key is we have to take responsibility. And this side of the table does not. It's all about reactivity. But what do you do with consequences? Because how many of you have been told you give children consequences to teach responsibility? No. A consequence is a reaction to an action. A consequence does not teach responsibility because you are reacting to the child. So you are modeling reaction. You are not modeling response. So I love to get the analogy. You take a child to Walmart, a child steals. You got two ways to deal with that. You can go to Walmart, not you can you go to Costco and you get to Costco, you say, you're going to get the basket, you're going to thief. If you steal, you put things that don't belong to you in your pocket. We're not doing that today. You get the basket. Doesn't feel good. So that's a vibration. Or I can pull up to Costco and say, hey, Chris, sweetheart, you're going to go to the store. It's going to be really stressful. You know what happens when you get really stressed? Like you put things in your pocket you don't want to because it makes you feel better. But then that stresses me out. And then it stresses you out because then it becomes a bad time. We never can do that. So today when we go in, we're going to get the basket. Because in the basket, I can keep you safe. And when I can keep you safe, we'll have a good trip. Okay? You can help me with stop doing this. We'll go, we'll do what we can. Now, I know you're 14 years old. Not really, right? She's 14. Well, she's 14 and she wants to get in the basket and let her get in the freaking basket. So emotionally, she's not 14. But have her stay with you. I used to take all 6 of my boys to Walmart, basically Costco, and they would stay with me the whole time. And we would have no issues. No issues, because I just keep them with you. And so you're just creating containment. You're just reducing the space that the child has to feel threatened in. And if there's a consequence, it's you taking the responsibility. It's you taking responsibility. How's that work? Well, next time we go to the store, hey, buddy, last time we had a tough time. So this time I'm hoping you should stay with me. Or this time before we go to the store, hey, last time we had a tough time. Do you think you're capable of coming to the store with us? Because I don't want to put you in a shit environment. Because that's making me a bad parent, and I don't want to be a bad parent. So you let me know what's up. Can you stay with us, or do you need to stay home? Because I'm just doing what's in his best interest. Because I don't want to let him down. So that's different. Now, then there's spanking. We're going to talk about spanking. Spare the school child. In the Bible, the shepherd uses the rod and the staff in the direction and guiding of the flock. The sheep, correct? The rod in biblical times was about 2 feet long, and it was a club. The staff was this big long thing with the hook on it. The rod was used to guide, and the staff was used by the shepherd to pull the sheep back into the flock when they would stray. The rod was not used by the shepherd to beat his flock. The rod was used to guide. Spare the child, spare the rod, spoil the child, means spare a child guidance, and they will be spoiled to the ways of the world. It does not mean beat them over the head with the rod. Because what does the sheep do when the shepherd beats them up? They stray. They become scared. So spare the rod means spare a child guidance, or they will be spoiled to the ways of the world. Because if the flock stray from the shepherd, guess what happens? They get eaten by the wolves and the coyotes. What happens to our teenagers in our homes today when we start out spanking or hitting or whatever we do? At 5 and 10, what happens at 15? You're not going to hit and spank anymore. They're going to leave. And just like my sister, they're going to be spoiled to the ways of the world. Because there are other kids who are stressed out there as well, and that's who you're going to get attracted to. So it doesn't mean get your kids. You really got to think about these things. Look at these things deeper. Okay, time in. I say do time in, not time out. Bring the child into you. Bring the child into you. And you know, if the child doesn't want to come to you, just look at him. Just look at him. Give him time in just like this. If I'm looking at you, if you're acting up, and I say, hey, come up here. No, it's okay. Who's she focused on? Me, because I'm focused on her. That can be time in as well. It's just you getting my attention. You getting my presence. You getting my regulation. Not in a scattered way, because that's creating more stress. But in a soothing way, even when you're stressed out, I can soothe you just by focusing on you and being present. Mindfulness, slowing down and paying attention to what you're thinking and feeling. This is probably one of the biggest ones. Learning to breathe, learning to slow down, learning to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Learning to go inside instead of focusing on the outside. So important. Understanding the dynamic of fear, critical. 10, 20, 10. Give a child 10 minutes of quality time and attention first thing in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon, and 10 minutes in the evening. You use this on the most difficult child. The most challenging child, you give them 10, 20, 10. 10 minutes of quality time and attention in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon, and 10 minutes in the evening. Now, I came up with this 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, I came up with this because at that time, in Newsweek magazine, which is a popular magazine in the States, they said the average amount of quality, this was 20 years ago, there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook. 20 years ago, the average amount of quality parents, child, time, quality attention was, think you get this, 20 years ago, before TikTok. What would you say? In the course of the day, right? 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. 10 to 12 minutes, 20 years ago. Where do you think it's at now? With cell phones and TikTok. Right? Like 1 to 2 minutes. So you do 10 to 10, you're giving the child an enormous amount of regulatory presence. So very important. So 10 to 10. Then the 3-phase intervention. Yes, that's okay. So the question is, what if your child tells you to go away? This goes back to that not taking it personal thing. So when your child tells you to go away, most of the time you get your feelings hurt. You get offended, or you tell them, I'm your parent, I don't have to go away. I brought you to which one I can take you back. Right? What you recognize when child tells you to go away, it's a defense mechanism. Go away because I'm stressed. So I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up. I'm going to wait. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to pace myself. I'm gonna wait and maybe I'll not, and I'll say, I'm just checking on you, and I'm gonna practice. I'm just checking on you, or I brought you your favorite treat. Is there anything you need? And then I go away, because some children are like turtles. You know, like turtles, are not given. Turtles, you go up, you see a turtle, turtles perfectly walking around, time, right? Walking around, you go up, you grab the turtle, right? What's the turtle do? Goes in its shell. Goes in its shell. You see some children are like turtle children. Their sensitivity to stress and anxiety is really high, and when they get stressed, they go inside. Well, typically what we do is when our child goes into their shell is that we get more stressed and more anxious. So we're like, come out, little turtle, come out. But let's stick in there trying to think about it, right? That's very representative of the anxious parent. Hey, don't you want to do something? What are you doing? And the child just like, you have to calm down. And with the turtle child, you have to wait. Who's that being work? I gotta slow down and rebuild the relationship. Slowly. I had one. I said, what's your 16? I said, what's his favorite snack? Seaweed. The seaweed crackers. I said, go get him something every day when he comes home from school. Have a little sitting in. She's like, I don't want to be rewarded. You're not rewarding him, you're building relationship. And so she started doing it. And the last thing when I saw her, she said, he's so happy. He just loves those little scraps. It's a small thing. It's a small thing. And what it says is, you love me. You thought about it. You care about it. And then you just build up from there. Because remember, you get really stressed with affection. You know what comes to. So 10, 22, do 1, 2, 1 to begin with. Right? Build up from there. Three-phase intervention says, as long as the child is not at risk of harming themselves or someone else, the first thing you got to do is you got to stop and take 3 to 10 deep breaths and reflect on how you feel. Reflect, relate, and regulate. So you take 3 to 10 deep breaths. You reflect on how you feel. When you reflect on how you feel, you say to the child, I feel scared, I feel upset, how do you feel? The child will say, I don't know, or I'm able to tell you. And as soon as the child starts to engage with you, you automatically regulate. But you have to stop and you have to reflect first. It's the first thing you have to do is you have to stop and take those 3 to 10 deep breaths. You have to tell yourself, I'm not going to die. Everything's going to be okay. You reflect, then you relate. You say to your child, I feel this way. It's important for you to tell your child how you feel, because if you don't, they will guess it. And if you're guessing it, it's always going to be wrong. And then regulation happens automatically. And that's basically what I did with mom. Just stop, sit on the bed, take 3 to 10 deep breaths, and reflect and get in touch with how you feel. And then you go from there. Limits are used for teaching children. They're not used for punishing children. When you set a limit, the child can't abide by the limit, then you have to restructure the limit. If the child can't handle getting off the television or getting off the phone at 8 o'clock, then you got to back it up to 7:45. Not in a punitive way, but in a way that says, hey, 8 o'clock's the limit. But if 8 o'clock is too much time, it's too stressful. Because I know when you're not stressed, you can do what I asked you to do. When you're not stressed, you can do what I asked you to do. Because you're thinking this clear when your short-term memory is available. But if I let you be on the phone past 8, then I'm putting you in a bad position. I'm letting you be stressed out, and that makes me a horrible parent. And I don't want to do that. So we're going to change from 8 to 7:45. What is you're taking me? No, I'm not taking my 15 minutes. I'm trying to be a better parent. Because if I give you that extra 15 minutes, then I'm just letting you get more stressed out. So, we're supposed to be off at 8. You go ahead and get off when you decide to get off. We'll do 7:45 tomorrow. Now, what impact do you think that's going to have? You see what I just did? I just took all the threat away. I'm not forcing you. I'm not a bad person. I'm just taking responsibility. This is what you can do. You know what the rule is. We're gonna leave it alone. We'll deal with it tomorrow. That puts the child in a very tough situation. Because then they're like, I don't want to lose my 15 minutes. Because if I wait, if I can't get off at 7:45, it's probably gonna come back to 7:30. Or it might come back to 6:30. And eventually it might come back to nothing at all. So now I have to really use my internal resources, get myself regulated, turn off the dopamine machine. Right? It's not easy to do. It's not easy for any of us to do. When you're doom scrolling at 11 o'clock, you know you got you're like, oh, let me just get 10 more minutes. 10 more minutes. Right? You do that. We have adult brains that do it. You know, your child's brain isn't going to be fully mature until they're 23 if they're girls. 23, 25 if they're boys. And that's without trauma. Without trauma. And we're adults. And we're doing scrolling, not wanting to get off. And if you're in the middle of your favorite Big Brother or whatever crazy reality show you watch, and someone says, hey, can you put there? What do? You have attitudes and feelings. Yeah. And then affection. My oldest son, his name is Kevin. I adopted Kevin when he was 16. He came to live with me in the group home when he was 15. And Kevin's social worker had followed me around for 3 years. Every time my wife had 7 kids. It's always funny to me when people comment on my social media posts or stuff. They're like, oh, this guy didn't have kids. I can say, bitch. So Kevin came to live with me in my group home. And for 3 years, I'd be lecturing in Virginia, in the state of Virginia, and his social worker would come. And at the end of the day, she'd come up, she'd say, hey, Bryan, I got this kid. I can't find a place for him. Because, you know where somewhere I can send him? And I'd be like, no, Diane, I don't have any place. And the second year I was lecturing, she came up, can you help? You have a place? No, Diane, I'm sorry. Early year, we decided to create this program. She comes up, Bryan, I got this kid. I was like, actually, Diane, I do. We just opened a group home. In 2 weeks, she had in place with us. So we were having another kid's birthday when Kevin arrived. So Kevin was very well known for running away. He was very well known for being disruptive, and he would not eat. So when he came, he had 5 medications and a prescription for Ensure. Ensure is that little sugary drink that you give people who can't eat. We had a prescription for Ensure. So he came the first day. We were having a birthday party for another little kid. Kevin was sitting in the corner, and he was all angry. And I didn't say anything. We had the birthday party, cut the cake, didn't say a word to him. After the birthday party was over, I looked at him and I said, come with me. And I walked out the door. He got up and he followed me. I said, get in. Got the Suburban. He got in the passenger side. Didn't say a word. I drove down to the grocery store. I said, come with me. I got it now. This is how I talk to kids. Come with me. Come on, let's go. Get in. I'm just like, I'm not like, oh, Jesus, like, yeah. Like, kind of kindergarten level Christian. Great. I'm trying. And so I'm going to the grocery store, and I said to him, pick out what you want to eat. And we got a basket, and we walked in the grocery store, and he picked out corn tortillas, avocados, eggs, bacon, and queso. And this was a kid who had a prescription for Ensure because he wouldn't eat. The same day I met this kid, I took him to the grocery store and said, pick out what you want to eat. He ate those 5 things for 6 months. He would be so happy. So happy. And no, After 6 months, he started letting us cook the food for him. And then after that, he started eating all other kinds of food. And then I was eats whatever I eat, it's a lot. And Kevin's 31 years old and he still stands up. They dancing while he's eating. I'm like, dude, sit down. But that was the first thing. The second thing is we have school. And Kevin used to get up. It's the kid who's knows for running away. Because my thing is not behavior control. My thing is relationship. My thing is regulation. And when I say that to you, I mean it. We had a group home with these boys, 13, 18. We did not lock the doors. We didn't do consequences. We didn't do points and reports. We did, if they had medication and they wanted to take the medication, they could take the medication. If they didn't want to take the medication, we weren't going to argue with them over the medication. Because I know if I can get you regulated, you're not going to do that for much longer. Kevin never touches medication. He never touched it because we create the relationship and we create a regulation in this world. So we had school. And Kevin would get up every morning and he would walk himself like 7 blocks to school. Had to be the first kid there. Work all day, walk home, no problem. But we couldn't get enough funding for the school. So we had to close it down. So all the boys, if we had a school, all our boys went to the same school. So all the boys now have to go to, it's called day treatment school. So this is where you basically, it's made by a residential treatment facility. They slam they have the big metal doors like a jail. Kevin one time got triggered by that metal door and would not go back. So I said to his social worker, I'm not gonna make him go. Because it's more important that I keep him regulated, that I have a relationship with him, and we'll eventually figure the school stuff out. She was like, okay. That doesn't always happen. But I'm pretty certain on what I want to happen. Like, I don't give a lot of wiggle room. I'm like, I'm not working with them. Like I have so many cases over the histories of being a therapist where I've gone in and there have been like 3 social workers, 2 juvenile probation people, an attorney, and I'll be like, I'm not working with any of them. I say that to a judge. I'm not working with them. You guys keep doing that, but I'm not doing it. Because I got my thing that I'm going to do. And so social work was like, that's cool. So Kevin would stay up all night and he'd like to sleep all day. So I would tell him, I said, look, you're not going to lay here on the floor because he'd sleep on the floor. You're not going to lay here on the floor, sleep while these other 5 boys gotta get up and go to school because that's going to eventually stress them out. Then they're not going to want to go, and I don't want to have to deal with 6 of them. Not going to go to school. So I told Kevin, get up, get dressed. Such an asshole. Get up, get dressed, and you sit on the porch. The boys, this the school is 45 minutes away. And remember, Kevin was known for running away. So he got up, he's like sitting at the top of the porch, leaning over. All the boys get up. They got this suburban. I drove them to school. I drove back. And Kevin was not there. I got him going like an hour and a half. So I walked around the house and noticed there was a window open. So then I went inside the house, went upstairs, looked in Kevin's room, and he was asleep on his floor. He had broken into the house. Into the house. And that tells you the power of relationship. That tells you the power of regulation. It tells you the power of love. The kids don't want to run away from love, they want to run to it. So we got to figure out how to get our own fear right. So we stop sitting that vibration so we can create an opportunity and an energy for children to be attracted to. That's the work you got to do. That's the work you got to do. That's the only work that matters. Kevin, just the other day, sent me his university enrollment. He's 15 hours he's enrolled. Just a couple months ago, he finished his GED. No, he didn't finish it when he was 18. He finished it when he was 30 years old. Does it matter? Doesn't matter. Now he's in college. And he's so excited and he's doing it on his own. No one's having to help him do that. And it's like, it's been challenging, but he's a good kid. He's a sweet kid. He came from some really tough circumstances. But the only thing we've just done is just loved him consistently. Just loved him and loved him and loved him, even when he's messed up. Because all kids do, because they have half a brain. So to expect them not to mess up is not even reasonable. Kids have half a brain, so they're gonna do half the brain stuff. You gotta be patient. You can't be so fearful with it. Okay. Starting off, starting off talking about my sister-in-law. And then I talked about the parents. They're not parents who were struggled with this. They loved us, but they really struggled. They didn't have anyone giving them any ideas about their children. They didn't have today. Didn't have Suzanne. Didn't have the rest of the beautiful tip professionals, tip parents. They didn't have you all. Community is really important when it comes to raising your children, because you have to have that repetition. You have to have that repetition. I know that when I'm talking to you all about is the truth. And I can go to the brain, I can go to the Bible, I can just go at any level you need to go. But I also know that when we walk out of this door, when we walk out of this room today, you're gonna forget 90% of what you learned today. By the end of the day, some of you will even forget that you were here. Take a few things. Take a few things from the day. You spend time focusing on this. You don't have to try to know all this stuff. You got a book, read the book. You got a book, it says read it 4 times. I mean, it takes you 2 hours to read the book. Read the book. That's going to be reinforcement. Watch the YouTube videos. Watch my Instagram. Then come get with Suzanne and get with the crew here. And keep supporting, keep learning, keep growing. Keep growing in the understanding. Because fear and stress is pervasive and it's not going to go away. We live in a stressed out society. We live in a stressed out society. Every invitation is to be stressed and is to be scared. But we don't have to live that way in our homes. So you sow seeds of love in your home. Sow the regulation, repair the relationship. See your children through the hard times. Just because they end up in some residential treatment facility or some group home or some juvenile detention, it's terrible, but it's not the end of the world. 18 does not mean you are done parenting. 18 means you are just starting. So hello. Make it through the best you can. You truly have the rest of your life. My wife and I have 1 child at home. We're going to our grandchildren. I love those grandkids. They start crying. I just hand it back to them. I'm going to change the diapers. I'm not doing none of that. One 17-year-old still at home. Sometimes she gives me relief. I run for my money. Just attitudes, and I have to adjust. I really teach this stuff. So I know that what I can share with you all today is simple, but it is not easy. But I also know it's worth it. I have seen the fruits of this harvest. It is worth it. You can do it. You just have to slow down, forgive yourself, have some grace for yourself. We're doing an awesome job. Just showing up here. I was just telling someone, how many people are in Glasgow? 1 million people? How many people are here? How many? 1 million? 1 million people. 60 people out of 1 million. 60 people out of 1 million. That says something about you. That doesn't say anything about anyone else. It says something about you. You can win. Love wins. I always say, in any given situation, we always have 2 choices. We can continue to react from our same blueprints of stress and fear and overwhelm, or we can stop, we can slow down, and we can choose love. And I hope you all will choose love. God bless you. Thank you for being here. And then, Suzanne had something she wanted to say.
A huge thank you, Brian, and as you see, I have seen the clips of this, and it is life changing. And just anyone that doesn't already know, we offer fully funded workshops across the whole of Scotland, in person or online. To schools, to teachers, to parents, to foster care. We have the wonderful Sarah Lathan, who is delivering workshops for teachers on doing this in the school classroom. She shares her first-hand experience, just like I do my workshops. So if you want a workshop, please reach out to me, pick up a flyer and we'll get the door. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Brian, I can say something. When I came today, I came with, when you said, see what we're coming with. So my intention was I wanted missing pieces of the puzzle of what it was within me to be able to do. And while you were talking, what you said at the end, but absolutely spot on. Because I realized there was such a fear of diagnosis and then medications and then behavior and then the establishments that put pressure on. Then there's these milestones which you're supposed to hit, more pressure. And then there was this community. It was constant pressure, blocking yourself into a, like it felt like the wall was coming in. But then when you told us to visualize in the heart space, and I was saying, oh, I needed freedom. But I just felt right now, like the last sentence really summarized it all. When it was constant slow down forgiveness and empower through love. I just want to say I'm so honored. Thank you so much.
I also didn't say that I really like notes.